You are tuned into the DNVR Rockies Podcast, brought to you by Bet365. Use code DNVR365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary with Bet365. Well, folks, the Rockies have done it. They have messed around and given us hope. A word that we hate, that I despise on this podcast because it's just so painful sometimes. But I can't ignore it anymore. I can't deny it. The Rockies have given us a reason to be excited in the month of September. It feels good to watch the Rockies, and I'm excited to break it all down for you guys on the show. Christian Saez here. Spencer, thank you for jumping on and hopping on the podcast. I know you are, even though you do our golf coverage here at ALLCITY, you're a diehard Rockies fan, so this has been a good couple of weeks for us Rockies fans here in Denver.
Yeah, tuning into every game during the night, like fighting with my wife over who's watching. Are we going to watch Handmaid's Tale or are we going to watch the Rockies? And so that's where we were at last night. We watched the Rockies until about the bottom of the eighth, and I was like, I think we're clear, so we can start Handmaid's Tale, so I can get to bed. But hope is it's just a thing that encapsulates me looking at the Rockies for my entire life, because it started out, 07, I was at some World Series games and that whole run, and then got back to 17, 18, they're back in the playoffs. There's hope there. There's hope for the team that they had at that point. We've obviously gone through quite a big valley, and I've always had hope that they would get the right guys for the job, whether that's 2026, 27, whatever it ends up being. And now it feels like we're cresting that hill again. We're headed back on the upswing.
Dude, I mean, I haven't been around on the journey as long as, the Rockies fans that grew up here in Denver have, as you've been. But I'm aware, as a fan of baseball, I'm aware of the ups and downs that Rockies franchise has gone through. And I think the frustration is that, it feels like the Rockies have been going in circles, the year after year. It's like you get excited for the season, there's this possibility that maybe this is the year we start to at least get on the upward slope, and then they just kind of peter out, and it feels like, the front office doesn't really know which direction they're headed. And I think for the first time that I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like we're starting to reap the benefits of some decisions that we've made in the past few years, seeing some of this young bullpen, this youth movement actually get to the big leagues and start to perform at this level, which is, I just feel like it's something we haven't been able to fully embrace and see over the last few years.
No, because in the last couple of years, and you touched on the youth movement, it's been... There's every baseball season, every team has a 6-7 game win streak. The Rockies had one earlier this year. Every team will have that moment of hope, whether, if you're not already eliminated and doing it in September, which it's cool that they're doing it now, but it's cool to me because of the guys they're doing it with. This isn't a 8 out of 12 streak in September when you're eliminated with CJ Crones and the Daniel Murphys and the Chris Bryants and guys like that playing most of the time. It's the Hunter Goodmans and you can go through the entire lineup from a Monday night I was there. You can go through that entire lineup. Even last night, you can go through that entire lineup and you realize that is the guys they need to be doing this with.
And that's exactly what I had said when I started this, was that the only way you actually have a valuable end of this year is if you give these guys a chance. Give them, these young 22, 24-year-olds a shot at the big league level and let them see what they're going to be seeing over the next couple of years. And to put this into perspective as well, the Rockies have a .388 winning percentage right now, which puts them on pace officially to go 63-99 for the first time since August 21, 2023. It's the first time they haven't been on pace for 100 losses on a season. So that's a good thing right there. But beyond that, since August 16th, which was the day that Drew Romo got called up to the big leagues, you could probably mark that as the start of the youth movement. The Rockies are 15-15. They face the Padres, the Nationals, the Yankees, the Marlins, Orioles, Braves, Tigers, Cubs, and now the Diamondbacks. That's a pretty tough stretch to put on the backs of a bunch of guys who have really never played consistent ball at this level. And they've been crushing it. And not only have they been crushing it, the bullpen has been the focal point for them, which is something we never get to say about the Rockies.
Yeah, the bullpen being the focal point for the Rockies is usually never a good conversation. That's never talked about in a good light. And you spoke on, the day Drew Romo got called up. the Rockies are in such a optimistic position for me right now that your or just people in general, Rockies Twitter is arguing about which 22-year-old should be playing.
Yeah.
And it's not, we'll get into it a little bit later, but the argument that's being had of like, it's not like Jacob Stallings is playing, but it's not like we're arguing that Drew Romo should be playing over him. We're arguing that Drew Romo should be playing behind Hunter Goodman, who's just hitting bomb after bomb after bomb, who's also part of your youth movement and part of your future. Yeah,
and it's starting to see this lineup evolve into what we might look at in the coming years. I was talking to Yahir, one of our other producers, and he's putting together a graphic for me that we're going to kind of unveil in the next couple weeks, where we start going on predictions of what the lineup's going to look like by 2026. And it's interesting because I actually think there's, again, some hope that like this team, from the pieces that we're seeing now, and that's not including any of the other decisions that the Rockies front office makes in the next coming years of trades or free agent signings, whatever that looks like, this lineup is going to look different 2 years from now. And the fact that we're starting to add successful pieces, I've mentioned his name a bunch. Seth Halverson being, in the pitching rotation, one of the forefronts for me. Luis Peralta, Victor Vodnik kind of gets thrown in there. Like, this pitching staff is starting to really find an identity here late in the season, and they've been solid. And I mentioned some of those recent series that we saw since Drew Romo got promoted. But if you look at the teams that the Rockies have won series against this entire season, the Rockies have won a series against the Phillies, the Guardians, the Royals, the Braves, the Padres 3 different times, the Brewers, and the Diamondbacks. Those are all postseason contending baseball teams. This team knows how to win. Now, they just need to fix some of the variables that can get them to 162, season success. But this is a team that's showing that they have figured out a winning formula, and they're just now starting to need to clean up like some of those little things. And that's a conversation we just haven't been able to have until just now.
Yeah, well, and when you get to this point of the year too, it becomes, unfortunately, it's at the helm of our PHNX D-backs guys. But this spoiler role in general is a blast. And with the guys they're doing it with, it's been a fun watch in September because they're playing with house money every single game. If they lose, it's like, okay, they were kind of supposed to lose, or, we maybe can find a few bright spots throughout the lineup or the pitching staff, but every time they're winning games now against teams that are fighting for their lives to stay in the wild card or stay in the playoff hunt, it just kind of makes me smirk a little bit.
Every time I build my shows, especially this time of year, like I am just looking for little storylines usually, and just like trying to find little backyard angles of like, how am I going to like fill an hour of content on the Rockies? And the Rockies have written all of that themselves. Like, I mean, the fact that we can actually talk about some of the breakdowns here and even go in a game-to-game breakdown. Like, I want to talk about what we saw yesterday, because yesterday was another incredible, all-around good baseball game from a team against a team that averages the most runs scored in all of professional baseball. The Diamondbacks coming into this series averaged 6.5 runs per game, which is the most in all of baseball. And in the span of 2 games, they have scored a total of 4 runs against the Rockies. Like, that's incredible. And it goes to show how this pitching staff has come around. Ryan Feltner, a guy that has had not a good season this year in his eyes and in the fans' eyes, goes 6 2/3 innings. He gives up 4 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, gets your team late into the game. Your bullpen comes in, only gives up 1 run. It was Jaden Hill's first run that he's given up in his entire big league career. And like, that's how you win baseball games. And the Rockies are showing that they're able to do that. They're scoring guys with runners in scoring position. Their defense is incredible. Brenton Doyle is playing the best center field ball that I've ever seen this year, that I've seen all year. I mean, he has a highlight reel every single game. It's just incredible, clean, efficient baseball. And it's funny because I look at like my mentions on Twitter and social media, and we were talking about this before the show. Like, normally when you post anything about the Rockies, you get people who are just pissed no matter what. Like, it's the Rockies, they suck. Like, have a winning season, then we can talk, like whatever. And a lot of it's warranted. But for the first time, like 75% or more of my comments that I'm getting on social media are like, this team's actually fun to watch. Like, I'm enjoying watching the bullpen, or like, hey, I'm getting kind of excited about watching this Rockies team. And I feel like that's something I haven't personally seen out of a Rockies
You're
fan
like,
base
what-
in forever.
what is going
Like,
on
Who the
here?
hell are these people in my mentions being happy about the
Yeah,
Rockies?
you see you have a notification. You're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to check that. And now it's fun. And piggybacking off what you said last night, it looked similar to that Monday night. You get Senzatella back, which is a great, precursor for next season, and that guy that you expect to be a staple of your rotation. And I sit down in my seat. I had great seats because they actually give you 4 free tickets if you buy the Rockies TV package.
Okay,
So literally,
yeah.
I bought the Rockies TV package at the beginning of the year, and I got 4 seats in 10 rows behind the dugout. So that paid for it in itself right there.
Jeez, yeah.
So I sat in my seats Monday night, and I was like, triple from Carroll, which I thought he was out, and then he was, they reviewed it and he was safe, and then just an absolute bomb from Marte, and I was like,
Third pitch of the game,
Yeah,
you're
I was
like,
like,
we're
this
done.
is going to be
Yeah.
a disaster, and then they didn't score again.
Yeah.
And so it's a winning formula of baseball. Now, maybe the last 2 games, last night, they did have a little bit more of an offensive explosion, but it's maybe not always the Coors Field formula, but winning games is winning games right now.
Yeah.
And it's similar to like if you're looking at the Broncos, they're not winning games, but even if they're winning games ugly, it's gaining confidence for Bo
Yeah.
Nix. Winning games ugly, winning games 3-2, winning games 8-2, whatever it ends up being, is gaining confidence for these young players, because a lot of these guys, there's a good, I'd say half of these guys that are playing right now, they weren't really a part of this disastrous May, June area.
Yeah.
And so to them, this is what MLB baseball and winning baseball looks like. So obviously as an athlete, you have to have that confidence. You have to be able to feel like you have a group of guys that can win. That's I relate it back to golf. If you go to a golf shot and you think you're going to hit it bad, you're probably going to hit it bad. You have to have some confidence going into it. So hopefully these kids going into 2025 and beyond feel confident that the group of guys they have, if they stay mostly intact, which we think they will, can win baseball games.
Well, and I said it the last 2 days that I've had the show, where I've said, in answer to one of the comments that Derek Mantilla made about the Rockies playing baseball right now without any pressure. Yes, wins and losses. You're right. They don't have any pressure right now. The pressure is entirely on the Diamondbacks to win these games. But I think there's an individualistic pressure that goes on every single one of these players, to piggyback off what you were saying, because these guys haven't made it yet. Like Luis Peralta, Jaden Hill, Hunter Goodman. I mean, Bud Black, when I talked to him yesterday, listed off literally 3/4 of their roster as guys who have not guaranteed their spot on this team, like from a full-time standpoint moving forward. These guys are fighting for their careers right now. And so I think that's important to recognize. It's like, this is a Rockies team that's going to play hard baseball the entire rest of this season. I want to go back, though, for a moment to talk, to finish up something on Ryan Feltner. I tweeted this last night, but this is a crazy stat to me. Going into the game, into his start yesterday, batters over the last 3 games against Ryan Feltner were 0 for 22 against his 4-seam fastball. That's unheard of for a guy who throws like 94 miles an hour. Like, Ryan Feltner's not blowing you away, but we're starting to see some of these guys just like get into a rhythm. And I do think when guys like Ryan Feltner, guys like, Jaden Hill, Luis Peralta, Seth Halverson, some of these younger guys, they're going to turn on the TV and watch the postseason this year. And they're going to see the Diamondbacks. They're going to see the Padres. They're going to see the Yankees, teams that they've played and beaten, playing in the postseason. And if you can say, I even go back to like Bradley Blaylock, who's in the minors again, but Bradley Blaylock, his best outings were against the Padres and the Yankees. He's going to go watch those guys play in the postseason and say, I threw 6 innings pitched, 1-2 earned run baseball in my first ever starts at the big league level. That's huge in your confidence as it shifts into, the coming years. And when you get to go back out into spring training next year and to know that you've already been able to compete at this level, at the top level of baseball, that's going to roll that confidence into the next few years.
Yeah, and these guys all know now what it takes to be a major leaguer, and that's why it's good that they're having this month and a half, August and September, of competitive baseball makes it a bonus. But the fact that they're getting into, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure too, but even guys like Charlie Condon getting up here, being part of the team. And that's one of the things I think you spoke on when we talked about the Twitter debates is, yes, Drew Romo's maybe not playing, but he's around a major league club. He's around these guys. He's around part of the guys that we hope turn back into the 2017, 2018 Rockies and are competing for a playoff spot again. This, when we talk in 365 days from now, this could be a very different conversation with good guys on the roster and a team that we actually expect to compete.
The Rockies are making it fun in the month of September. Hopefully next year they'll be able to make it more meaningful in the month of September. I do want to talk about, speaking of the coming years, there was a guy with the Rockies who made his dugout debut yesterday in Charlie Condon, the top draft pick for the Rockies. Spoke to Condon. We've got some good sound bites from him coming up here in just a moment, but I want to pause, take a quick break here because we got to shout out some of our sponsors, starting with Game Time. Spencer, you were just talking about it. I mean, this is still peak baseball season right now at Coors Field. The weather is gorgeous, not too hot. And there's never been a better time to get out to the ballpark than it is right now. And you can get some affordable tickets on the Game Time app. I was checking the other day. There's like $4 tickets on Game Time right now going up into Rockies games. That's like pocket change. You can get tickets to a Rockies game through the Game Time app for some pocket change, and you get to enjoy really good baseball right now, which is not something we've been able to say in the month of September for the Rockies fans. So check out the Game Time app. Check out what they have on that app. It's something called Game Time Picks. It just makes it a little bit easier for you to get the best tickets possible, whether it's cheap and affordable, but maybe you want to spend a little bit more money, get closer to the field. Maybe you want to see how big some of these Rockies players really are up close and personal. They've got seat views, panoramic views on that Game Time app, lowest price guarantee. They've got a bunch of good stuff out there on the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create an account using code DNVR, $20 off. What time is it? It's game time. They could be paying you to go to a Rockies game right now. They should be. They should be paying
you get a $7 or $8 ticket. You get two of them. They're paying you $6 back.
It's a great deal all around, man. It's a good time to be out at Coors Field. And look, if you are going to get out to Coors Field, it's still nice and sunny. The weather's been beautiful. And you got to rock a good pair of sunglasses when you're outside, especially in Colorado. You got to check out our friends over at Shady Rays. I've got the sunglasses on my head because I don't go anywhere without them. I grew up in a place where there wasn't a lot of sunshine, Seattle, Washington. I didn't really own a consistent pair of sunglasses outside of like my baseball sunglasses until I moved to Colorado. And when I moved to Colorado, I remember people telling me, like, how do you not have sunglasses? Like, you have to have sunglasses. And I didn't realize that was a thing until like you were blinded every single time you walked outside. And Shady Rays is the best way to combat that. They've got some incredible sunglasses. Spencer and I, we both have the Shady Ray sunglasses on in the studio today. You can see they look great. They've got polarized sunglasses. If you use code DNVR, you get 35% off your polarized sunglasses. So if you're like me, you like going fishing, you can see those little fishies swimming around in the water a lot better than you can with just regular pair of sunglasses. But they look good. They're affordable. You can get some great deals on the app. So check out ShadyRays.com on their website, I should say, using code DNVR for 35% off all polarized sunglasses. Try them for yourself. See the shades that are rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. We all have them here at DNVR. They are truly the best in the business.
Yeah, if you're going to Coors Field, and the only problem I have is I love sitting on the first base side. And then every time I realize that first base side, it wasn't as bad Monday because the sun's going down earlier, but if you're sitting on the first base side and for a night game, you have to have sunglasses for at least the first 3 or 4 innings.
During the Padres series, I think the last time they were in town, my mom was in town, and and she was asking what side of the field we should sit at, and I was like, well, if you want to be around the Rockies fans, you got to sit first base, but like if you want to be cooking, or don't want to be cooking, I should say, you got to go to the third base side. So we ended up sitting on the third base side just because like that was still when it was like 98 degrees every day, and we didn't want to be melting over there. It was a good choice, but yeah, surrounded by Padres fans was not as good of an idea as we thought it would be. So yeah, I will say though, the Rockies actually, I think, the Rockies fans outweighed the Diamondbacks fans at Coors Field this weekend. Normally we see it kind of, especially this time of year when you're playing teams like the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Padres, like you get a lot of those fan bases showing up to Coors Field. It's been pretty much all Rockies fans the last few days. Diamondbacks fans do not travel well. No, I think a lot of people go to Arizona to live there, but they don't leave Arizona and come and live in Denver, Colorado. No. I feel like, and it's, for the Diamondbacks, like being part of ALLCITY, I've followed them a little bit more closely. They're obviously in the same division as the Rockies, but they
they seem to be a little bit fair weather. And I hope, Derek and Jesse have done a great job, and their show is incredible, and their whole brand has grown. But the Diamondbacks fans are, for a team that was in the World Series last year and a team that's playing this well right now, like I would expect to see a few more fans out there. There was a smattering of them that first inning the other night on Monday that were cheering for Marte's home run, and then they had no reason to cheer the rest of the game. So that was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. I know. It's always nice to quiet the opposing fans at Coors Field. There was a special guest yesterday at Coors Field. Charlie Condon made his dugout debut, as I call it. He was suited up, getting some BP, although he did not get to take BP on the field, which is, to me, like the most devastating thing. You spend your entire life growing up like dreaming of one day taking BP on a major league field. You finally get that moment, and it gets rained out. Game was beautiful, but like pregame,
especially at Coors Field.
Yeah, I know.
That is dream BP.
Condon would have been hitting balls into the third deck out there. I wanted to see him personally take BP out there, but unfortunately, he just had to do it in the tunnel. But Condon, he got to talk to us before the show, or before the game, I should say, and we were asking him a little bit about like what it was like, just getting to put on the uniform and see what it's like having a Rockies, jersey on, and kind of get to be around big league guys. So I have a clip here for you guys. Clip number 1, asking Condon, what it's like just to be in uniform and being around the big league guys. This is what he had to say.
It was so cool to get to put it on and wear the Rockies across my chest and kind of take the tour around the facility. It's an incredible ballpark, to kind of get to see every angle of it. It's first time here, and to see it in person as opposed to online. Online doesn't even come close to doing it justice, and it's been really fun.
What was it like for you walking into a big league clubhouse, seeing guys that are getting ready to prepare for a major league game today?
Sure, it's really cool to see different guys' routines and how they go about it. Obviously, a bunch of guys that I have a ton of respect for and have watched growing up and things like that. It's been really cool to see them and get to meet some of those guys, all a bunch of really good baseball players and human beings.
It's pretty cool seeing Condon, in the dugout. He is 6'6". So he towers over everyone else in there. But with his draft status being the top rated, top prospect, top draft pick, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that for a guy like Charlie Condon. He was playing college ball literally just a few months ago. So we asked him, how is he managing that pressure, that external, expectations that are coming into this year? And this is how he answered that question.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of external pressure, I'd say, that kind of comes from being a bigger name than I was 2 years ago. And so the way I've kind of always handled that is holding myself to a higher standard than I think anybody else would hold me to. I think that's why I got here. I think that's why I've been able to have some success in this game. But I also know that just because you have success a couple times doesn't mean it's going to happen for you automatically. I know that has to be earned every day. So I'm going to continue to hold myself to as high of a standard as I've been holding myself to, and so that kind of helps me stay grounded.
So we've had Condon on the show here before, about a month ago, and I got the same vibe then that I got yesterday when I talked to him. The guy has such a poised and composed head on his shoulders. He is just like even keel, super laid back, and very, I don't know, mature. That's the best way I can put it. And Bud Black said the same thing, but like I loved talking to him, and I talked to him a little bit off camera too, just since we had him on the show. And I mean, just every conversation I had with him, I mean, he was critical of himself in a very mature way, saying, I just got to be better in every single way. This is a huge opportunity for me to grow. Like he just seemed like he had the best outlook possible for a guy in his situation. And because he has so much pressure, because the Rockies are like basing their franchise on all these young guys, like I think that's almost one of the most valuable pieces of Condon right now. Like the bat's there, the defense is there. Like that's going to show up over the next couple of years as he gets more reps in the minor league level. But he seemed like he had a really good head on his shoulders. I really do think he could be a really promising piece to this Rockies franchise.
Yeah, drafting a guy 3rd overall, obviously there's a reason you got to pick 3rd overall. But putting there's a pressure is obviously the saying pressure makes diamonds. This is something that I think is good for Charlie because he's up here. He's getting to see what winning baseball looks like in small doses in a September where they are eliminated. So I'm not going to take that into account. But the fact that he knows that like this team is looks like they're building something, and it's not like he's coming here and he's like, oh, well, I just have to do everything. Like, he's looking in this locker room and in this dugout and seeing guys like Brenton Doyle, seeing guys like Charlie Blackmon, who's been doing it since he was probably born, pretty close to that. You know, seeing guys like that around the locker room every day and in the dugout, and watching them play meaningful baseball to the individuals. It's not meaningful baseball to the team, and you spoke on that earlier, but it's meaningful baseball to each of these individuals and what they're putting into it and getting Senza back. Like, this whole week is just an opportunity for these guys to solidify themselves as individual baseball players and players that deserve be on a major league roster in 2025. And then as a team put together, you get enough good players, you generally have a good team, especially in baseball.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think part of it is, you know, he's gotten to see some incredible baseball these last few days, and be in conversations with Bud Black and these guys. And I talked to Bud Black, you know, after I talked to Condon, and we asked him, you know, like what it was like, you know, just during the draft day and what his impression of Charlie Condon was. And Bud Black had an interesting story about Condon and talking about him having a good head on his shoulders. Listen to this story that Bud had to say about, you know, how his first experience meeting Charlie Condon over the phone went.
After the draft, over the years, no matter where I've been, I've called, I've called the draft picks, right? I get their number from either the general manager or the scouting director. So it's one of those things where, hey, give me their number. Hey, buddy, give Max Fried a call, or give whoever a call. Not once did anybody ever pick up. I left a message, and then, like 5 seconds later, I got a phone call. Condon picked up. So I dialed, not expecting him to pick up, and he goes, hello? And I go, Charlie? He goes, I go, Buddy Black, manager of the Rockies. He goes, hey, bud, how you doing? I go, hey, then we had a conversation. But in all these years, nobody answers.
It's spam.
Who's that 619 number? Who's calling me? Right? And I leave a message, and then within minutes they call back. Oh, sorry, I was taking a dump. Sorry.
Did you go? Actually, I wasn't expecting you to pick up, and I don't have time right now to talk to you.
I gotta go. Hey, congratulations. See you in 3 years.
That's an all-timer from Bud Black. That's good. I do think it's funny that Charlie was answering random phone calls on like seconds after being drafted. He's like, oh yeah, here's a 619 number. I'm gonna pick up and answer this. But yeah, that's a pretty good story there from Bud. Bud had a big day yesterday. He became the winningest coach in Rockies franchise history. 535, win number 535. He kind of went about it in a pretty weird roundabout 6 consecutive losing season way. But he finally got there, and so congrats to our buddy Bud Black.
Yeah, when I saw that graphic, because I pay attention, but I didn't know it was like that. And
we didn't either in the press box. Patrick Saunders was like, oh my God, it's 5:35 on like the 9th inning in the press box. So none of us had a clue either.
Yeah, it is a weird way to go about it, but I think there was such instant success right away, and he kind of inherited a team that was ready to contend for the postseason. He's taken them through the valley and through the worst season in Rockies history in 2022. And now, they're hoping. I'm never fire coach guy.
Yeah.
I'll admit that, whether that's, in any sport. I've always been like, hey, it's not necessarily more about the coach. I get that there's a fresh perspective needed, but a lot of the teams that you see in other sports that are constantly not successful. Let's NFL team, Carolina Panthers. They're just like a disaster. They've had great players. They've had the DJ Moores, the Christian McCaffreys, blah, blah, blah. What do all the teams that are consistently bad have in common? Either bad ownership, which we won't get into, but they cycle through coaches constantly.
Yeah.
And Buddy Black has been a successful manager before with the Padres. He was successful in his first couple of years with the Rockies. I admit that I'm biased and I'm more on not fire coach guy, and maybe you do need a fresh perspective. But at the same time, this season and these last couple of seasons don't necessarily rest on the manager's shoulders, in my opinion. Yep. Like, everybody would be like, oh, why is he bringing this guy in from the bullpen? who else is he going to
Yeah,
bring in? Is Jesus Christ all of a sudden coming from the bullpen? No, like you can't just manufacture make-believe players to come in and pitch better than the guys that he's got.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, I will, like I said, I will admit that I'm biased, and I'm definitely always on the other side of, hey, let's have the players play better before we decide if the coach is good enough.
I totally agree, man.
But him getting to this it just kind of goes to show, the Rockies are a younger franchise, so that, 30 years in the making doesn't have that long tradition, long history yet. But seeing, that just makes me think, trying to go back in my brain archives of like how quickly they fired Jim Tracy and how quickly they fired Clint Hurdle, because both of those guys had extreme success.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 535. We did talk to Bud about it, and regardless of your thoughts on Bud Black or your opinions on whether he should be the manager or not, it was a cool moment for him, and the players seemed to respect that as well. And so after Bud got a nice little beer and foam shower from Charlie Blackmon, this is what he had to say about this milestone for him.
Well, again, I've been a part of those in there before. But like I said, for milestones and first win, first save, first hit, stuff like that. It's great. I mean, that's part of what makes us love the game. And when it's over for all of us, right? It's moments like that you remember, right? I mean, listen, no doubt, at World Series, I remembered big games, playoff games, or firsts. But, that's the type of stuff that stays with you. It's great.
Bud seemed genuinely like giddy coming out of the locker room there. I mean, he said Charlie Blackmon was the one who got to him. And I will say, this is a much better memory for him, I think, in a positive way than what happened on yesterday's date 40 years ago. Because in 1984, on yesterday's date, Bud Black gave up home run number 500 to Reggie Jackson, and he talked about this before the game. So we'll play this one last clip because this was a great story, and Bud Black did a good job chronicling this memory that he had 40 years ago.
We were up 8 or 9 to nothing. As it turned out, Reggie hit 500 off me like in the 8th inning. It was a bomb too. 3-1 pitch, fastball right there. It was large. It was a big one. Rounded third, and then I was watching, and we had eye contact, and he tipped his cap. And I sort of, acknowledged him back. So, we were connected there, which was cool. And then hit home plate, and they stopped the game. The Autry's came down, and the announcer was Jerry Schemmel and Jack Corrigan, and Drew Gooden were down there interviewing Jerry. And, in the middle of the game, it was 7 or 8 minutes talking to Reggie. I'm going, what the hell's going on? So then I got the next hour, whatever it was, and then we went on to win the game. Oh yeah, it was great.
What a wild memory to have.
Dude, the specifics of that. The 3-1 fastball. Yeah. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. And he's recalling 40 years ago. I guarantee
the
you.
slight nod.
Yeah,
The fact that he remembered every detail of that is just crazy.
I found that clip because I put that video together. It took me 5 hours in the press box yesterday to make that 30-second video, but finding the clip and seeing, I wish I could seen Reggie Jackson tip his cap to Bud Black, because that's you see Bud kind of nod to him, but hilarious. That's Bud Black was he's got a good memory on him, man. I mean, I guess that's what makes a good coach. You remember names and moments. But yeah, what a cool thing. In a moment, though, I want to talk about our catching situation, because I do think that's one of the bigger conversations we can have on this show. But we got to hit a break here and talk about our friends over at Bet365, because at Bet365, we don't do ordinary. It is a great time to be a sports fan. There are so many great ways to get involved in the sports betting world right now. You've got football, baseball still in full swing. And honestly, football and baseball are my two favorite sports to bet on. I don't know how you feel about the different sports betting worlds of baseball versus football versus basketball, but baseball, you could bet on all these different little money lines on stats and runs, and it's so unique. And then football is the same kind of thing. I mean, what's your favorite sport that you enjoy betting on?
Well, when I get to a baseball game and have a few Coors Lights, it's definitely live betting. in-game
Yes.
pitches,
Yeah.
at bats, like how you feel the momentum's going. I get down rabbit holes where I kind of had to stop myself. But betting baseball is fun because you're betting on, it's such a 1 out of 162, but you're like, hey, this is a good pitcher. This team has been, there's teams that win 10, 15 games in a row. You could just ride that and continue to double it up. Like I think earlier in the year, you could have made like $100,000+ betting against the White Sox. Like if you just hit the other teams like money line or -1.5 every single game. So baseball is a blast to bet on. And same with football, like props. Hey, this guy's going to have a good day. You're not worried about the team. You're not worried about the defense playing bad or this or that. You're just worried about, hey, I want that receiver to get 4.5 catches. That's all I need.
I love football parlays too. I mean, just being able to look at like, receivers versus quarterbacks versus running backs versus defense, touchdowns, whatever. This is a great time to be involved in the sports betting world. You got to use our code DNVR365 when you sign up. You can deposit $10, choose between either a bet and get offer or a first bet safety net offer. They've got a lot of cool discounts there. So check out Bet365. See why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Disclaimer: you must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, you mentioned it. It's a good time to pair some Coors Light out at Coors Field. Coors Light, the best way to enjoy a nice, relaxing baseball game. And you can pair Coors Light with anything. You can go camping. You get a cooler full of Coors Light. You can, be kicking it back at the house on the porch, watching the dogs run around in the backyard. Coors Light goes well there, on a bonfire. But truly, I mean, you got to enjoy the rest of this baseball season while it lasts, because we've only got like 2 more weeks of baseball season in Colorado before you got to wait a whole year until you get more baseball. And there is no better way to enjoy Rockies baseball than with a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light beer. You head up to the rooftop bar, you get $3 Coors Lights before first pitch. And even if it's after first pitch, you're not paying that much money out at Coors Field for really anything you do. So Coors Light, they're the way to go. Embrace that chill mindset. It's a great time to choose chill. Crack open a nice Coors Light. You can also get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Please celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, based in Golden, Colorado. All right, catching rotation here for the Rockies. I think when Drew Romo got called up on August 16th, we all kind of let out a sigh of relief because the trade deadline happened. You didn't get rid of Elias Diaz or Stallings. There was some frustration there. You then DFA'd Diaz. It felt like the Rockies kind of mishandled that. But you finally got around to Drew Romo, and you thought this was going to be, because of all the other negative storylines around that, you thought this is going to be good. This is the future of our catching spot, and it's just going to all work out from here. And as it normally happens when you call up a 23-year-old rookie catcher, it didn't really go that way. Drew Romo is still in the big leagues, but he hasn't quite solidified himself in that catcher spot. Hunter Goodman has been getting reps at the catcher spot. He's been actually getting more reps than not at that catcher slot. Jacob Stallings has been back out there. We haven't seen Drew Romo in, I think, three, maybe 4 games consecutively. So it brings up the question of where are the Rockies headed with their catcher spot? And I've been actually getting into some conversations on Twitter about this, so I wanted to get your take on this. Do you think that the Rockies are handling this catching rotation well? What do you want to see out of them to finish out this year?
I do want to see Drew Romo get a few more starts, but I think what is kind of lost on some people when you think about the catching rotation and who's behind the plate is not only for their bat, which right now, Hunter Goodman, if he's hitting home runs, you can't take him out of the lineup.
Sure.
And they can get him in the DH spot for sure. But it's also, with all these young pitchers the Rockies have, it's also that relationship too. And you're worried about, how well does a catcher handle a pitcher? And the catchers have been doing a great job that have been playing. I'm not saying Drew Romo can't do that. I'm not saying he won't be that guy in the future. But right now, with the way the Rockies pitching staff is going, especially the bullpen and those young arms, I kind of wouldn't mess with a good thing and let these guys play. Like, Hunter Goodman's an interesting character because I don't know what your thoughts are, but don't you think maybe moving forward is he the DH but Drew Romo's the better defensive catcher? So is Drew Romo the everyday catcher and Hunter Goodman's the DH that can catch, or are they, because the way they're playing Hunter Goodman, it makes it seem like they want him to be a major league catcher, but at the beginning and when he came up, Obviously, there's not a lot of room. You want to get that bat in the lineup when we had Diaz and Stallings. But I'm interested to see what they do with Goodman because he can play other positions, and I think they want him to, right? I don't know. I can't tell what they want him to be exactly, and it's good to have a guy like that that's like, hey, he can catch, also play right field, also play wherever, but it's getting a little crowded in the other spots to where that's the best place for him right now.
Yeah, he's not going to be an outfielder. That was the other place they were kind of mixing him in. The outfield is stacked for the Rockies, even in the minor leagues. I personally think they're probably going to, if you look at what the lineup's going to be in 2026, if Goodman's in the lineup, I think he takes over for Charlie Blackmon as the DH. And I think Drew Romo can be a catcher. He can be an 8-9 hole catcher where he just needs to get his batting average up. We're not going to see him hitting a ton of home runs. If he can find ways to get on base, get his OPS going, that to me is his defense takes care of itself. He's one of the best defensive catching prospects in all of baseball. He's got a 1.7 pop time. Like, the dude is a stud behind the plate. And people say, oh, he needs to get his little shot put thing figured out. I'm not as worried about that. I do think the Rockies, he's a professional baseball player and he's got professional coaches around him. They will, if that becomes a problem, they will figure that out. But I think where I see this shift is I think Drew Romo just needs to build a little more confidence in a leadership role. That catching spot, you need to be a guy who can be outspoken and be confident and be able to communicate well with your pitchers and with your fielders and all of that kind of stuff. Jacob Stallings is that guy for the Rockies right now. I think when I talk to Bud Black, Hunter Goodman's bat is what's keeping him in the lineup right now. They're working on his defensive catching abilities. Drew Romo's bat is what's keeping him out of the lineup right now. And Jacob Stallings is this is the best offensive season he's had, and he's fine behind home plate. And so I think that's kind of where they're at right now with the catching rotation. I think the confusing part to some people right now is why is Drew Romo still on a big league, at the big league level? And I understand where there could be some value to move him down to the minors and give him some more reps before the end of the season. But from what it sounded like in talking to Bud Black, they want him working with their catching staff on the big league team right now. They want him around guys who are leaders in the clubhouse, getting that kind of foot in the door. And I think Bud Black was saying to us that that's a little more important to them than him getting the consistent reps. They know he's a good defensive catcher. He's getting BP. He's getting, these reps with the bat in a kind of practice way. But they want his leadership to kind of take a step up, and that's why they're keeping him up at the Coors Field level.
Yeah, and I think that's an important quality to have in a catcher, especially now that MLB has gone to a DH everywhere, and a catcher hitting a certain amount of home runs obviously is great. The way baseball's going, the more home runs, the better. But a catcher being not necessarily the most offensive minded is not needed anymore in the National League. When you have a designated hitter, you can hit the catcher ninth, you can hit the catcher eighth. What I want from my catcher is can he make the Rockies have lost a few games this year on wild pitches. Can he change an entire baseball game? Now it doesn't seem like a lot when it's 1 of 162. But can he change an entire baseball game or have won them a baseball game with his defensive abilities? So I'm more worried about him being a good defensive catcher. Yes, he can't go out there and hit 120, or his OPS right now is, I believe, 447. Like, that can't happen for him to stay in the major leagues. But going forward, I'm not as worried about him being this great offensive catcher with 20-plus home runs. Like, it was cool to have that in Diaz and Stallings kind of back-to-back the last couple of years, but it's not as necessary anymore. Can he play defense? Can he make the big plays? Can he throw out runners? Can he be a leader? That's what I'm looking for in terms of a catcher right now. Hit him ninth and let him hit 210 or whatever it is with, maybe get up that OPS up to 550, 600, something around there. But overall, can he be a good leader behind the plate to a pitching staff? That's more important to especially a team like the Rockies than him hitting 25 bombs.
Well, and Bud also said too that he needs more time at the minor league level. He will probably start in Albuquerque next year unless he has an incredible camp. He'll probably start in Albuquerque next season, and you'll get a Goodman Stallings combo. I do think they're going to re-sign Stallings. He'll probably reject his. I think he's got like a team option or something like that coming up this year. He'll probably re-sign, though, after he renegotiates for another season. So we'll probably see Stallings as the starting catcher next year. And Goodman will kind of be that DH / backup catcher. And then Romo, as the season progresses and we see what he does in the minor leagues, again, he'll kind of earn that spot back, I think, if he continues to play the way he did in the minor league level. But I agree with you. You just don't need a catcher who can go out and hit bombs. And I think, the way that baseball has shifted today is that's not as important. I think his defense is definitely enough to keep you, comfortable behind home plate. I've done a couple catcher breakdowns with Romo, talking to him. You can find those on the DNVR Twitter account, where I talked about, like his setup, where he sets up, having one knee down, how he goes about throwing runners out. He's a very defensive-minded catcher, and he puts a lot of focus into that, and you can see it. And I think it's an underrated, version of him that the fans don't always realize. I've made the comparison to him and Buster Posey. Like, if you watch footage of Buster Posey when he was catching, and you line that up with footage of Drew Romo, there is a very distinct similarity between the two. And I actually should ask him about that, if he, who he's looked up to as a catcher, in his time growing up. But I think he's going to be a solid presence behind the plate. He is kind of soft-spoken, so I do, see that being an area of growth. He's not someone who's going to come up and, in my eyes, take charge of a game when a pitcher is struggling and you need to go out there and talk to Kyle Freeland and say, you need to get your shit together and get back in this game. I don't see him being that guy yet. But I think if you put tangible things that need to be improved on for the offseason, he's going to work on that. And that's where I say these young guys, they are trying to, these are important games for them because they're trying to find their identity on a big league squad so that they can actually put together an entire season next year. I think these are important games. I do think we'll see Drew Romo a couple more times before the season's done.
Yeah, have they released the lineups for today? I would imagine maybe we'll see him today. At least his bat, maybe behind the plate.
That's a good. He hasn't played in a few days, so I think they could see him. I do want to get to some of the comments in the Toyota chat here, but real quick, we got to take a quick break and shout out our amazing sponsor at Westera Credit Union, because if you're like me, you're trying to kind of get control of your finances. You want to get on top of things, especially with the new year coming up right around the corner. It's a good time to get involved with a good financial institution that is all about helping you reach your financial goals. Westera Credit Union, they're a really impressive organization because they're all about helping you learn how to take care of your finances. They were started by a group of just 8 school teachers, and so helping people is in their DNA. And it's cool for someone like me who didn't grow up in a financial, I wasn't a finance major. I didn't grow up in a family that was financial investors or bankers or anything like that. So a company like Westera Credit Union, they really help teach you how to manage your money, and they've got cool options within their organization. Their smart money checking account is an awesome tool for those who want to make small balances, earn big returns. You can earn up to 6% annual percentage yield on your first $2,000 each month. It's like $120 each year. So just check out all the different options that they have there. And if you're like me, you like earning money by doing the little things that you're already doing with your checking account, visit westeracu.com/smartmoney for more details. Membership eligibility required. Insured by NCUA. Restrictions and conditions apply. Oh, we also got to give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota, because Toyota is the best place to go get vehicles. They have got so many different options. Spencer and I, we both own Toyotas. We've got family that owns Toyotas. It is just a part of our DNA to have Toyotas. I have never owned a car that's not Toyota, and it's just because they are reliable, they're efficient. You can, that even if something's going wrong with your car, you got dinged up a little bit, you need to switch out, a tire, get your oil changed, whatever it is. People can work on Toyotas. Like I have family, extended family who have like Lexus and Audi and a bunch of different types of cars, and it's like you go to get your oil changed on a Lexus and you have to like remove the engine. It feels like, you've got to take all these different pieces apart just to get your oil changed. With Toyota, it's just so much more simple. They keep it simple, and it really helps you on the back end take care of your car. I know you have a new Toyota. I have an older Toyota that has been just incredible, almost 250,000 miles, and I feel like I could put another 100,000 miles on my car. They are truly the best car on the market. So check out Toyota. Check out your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. That's Auto Nation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR and the Rockies. We got a couple people in the Toyota chat. Eric says, I think the Rockies still have a way to go before they're a playoff team. I agree. I mean, look, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We're excited for what the Rockies are doing. But there are a lot of variables, and I said this yesterday. There are a lot of variables that they need to work out before they become a 162-game winning team. This is a team that is showing promise, but you have to also realize that these are young guys, and one of the downsides with a team full of 22 to 24-year-olds is they fluctuate a lot. You get a lot of ups and downs. You can ride the waves. We've seen Tovar, Doyle have big ups and downs. The pitching staff, Kyle Freeland has had a lot of ups and downs this year. That's something I think we need to kind of work through in this next season is, can we get guys that can put together a longevity season, not just a good 2 months, a good 3 months, and then a kind of drop off for 3 months. Like, I need guys that can play throughout an entire season, stay healthy, and do it as a team effort. That's my biggest variable that I think the Rockies' young core needs to be able to figure out.
Yeah, we saw that last year. Going into this season, I do want to look at my predictions for the Rockies before the season, because I know I was a little off on some of them. Obviously, the record, I was a couple games off, but just certain players and their predictions. And last year, what we saw from Nolan Jones was, okay, this guy is ready to compete. Now, this year, obviously not a great year numbers-wise. He was injured, so how much of that factors in is kind of, only Nolan really knows. But that's what we need to see. And last year, Brenton Doyle, we knew he was great defensively. He's taken a step up offensively. He was player of the month. So you need to continue to see consistency out of these players year after year. We saw Nolan's last year. We thought he was ready to be that consistent guy. Then this year, down year. And last year, Brenton Doyle, not a great offensive player, not just a complete player yet. This year becomes a complete player. Can he parlay that into even being a more complete player next year? So if I had to give my personal opinion, I think next year is the year where you're like the Tigers of this year, where you're a 500 baseball team, you're playing good baseball, you're maybe, depending upon that 6th, 7th wild card spot where it is, like the National League this year, you got to be 16, 17 games over 500 to be in that spot.
Yeah.
But I do see the Rockies need to try to be that team next year. Are they going to win 80-plus games? Probably not. But if they go into September or August at 500 or right around, hovering around 500, where the games kind of matter, you're like, you check the wild card standings. Are they 6 games out, 7 games out, something like that, where if they get hot, they could make a run and at least try to compete for a playoff spot? I think that's where 2025 looks. And then if that's successful, 2026 is the year where you go back into it. You've got all these guys that are now 25, 26, 27 instead of 22, 23, 24. And you compete in 2026. And then that's the year where you maybe look at adding guys like they did this year with adding a guy like a Cal Quantrill, or maybe even a higher level pitcher, and one more bullpen arm, whatever it ends up being, where you're like, okay, we're not sellers anymore at the deadline. We're buyers. We're looking to compete this year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And if you look actually at the standings right now, the Rockies are playing meaningful baseball in September. It's just not meaningful for them from a wins and losses standpoint. So let's look at the standings, because they wrap up their home series here against the Diamondbacks. They go play the Dodgers starting in a couple days. But Diamondbacks, they're right there in the thick of it. It's the Diamondbacks, the Mets, and the Braves right now that are fighting for that last wild card, or those last 2 wild card spots. Diamondbacks and Mets kind of have those last 2 wild card spots in the bag right now. But the Braves are only 2 games back. The Rockies, I mean, you're continuing this stretch of 27 games where you're playing teams over 500. They play the Dodgers for 2 more series. Like, this is a team that can upset a lot of people if they win a few more ball games over the next few weeks.
So the Braves are 2 games back of the wild card. What is their record right now?
They are 81-70.
81-70. Yeah. So you're looking at, you're going to need to be about an 85 to 87 win team to make the playoffs in the MLB.
Yeah.
Even with that extra wild card spot. So, if you look at trajectory of maybe 61 wins this year, 70 to 75 feels like a big jump next year that could happen.
It could. The Rockies are wrapping up their series against Lord Farquaad and the Arizona Diamondbacks. I loved your tweet there last night about Lord Farquaad or Corbin Carroll looking like Lord Farquaad out there on the field. I didn't realize that until you said it, and see, there you go. That's Corbin Carroll.
Same height and everything, same hair.
That's in the colors and everything. That's incredible. It's true, and I say that because he's a great player. And so it's hilarious. It's hilarious to make fun of him, but dude's a stud. He did get thrown out by Hunter Goodman yesterday for his first caught stealing of his career,
and grounded into a double play. Which doubling him off is a tough task.
So the Rockies got to face him one more time here tonight. Speaking of the Dodgers, though, who they're going to be playing in their next series. The Dodgers have one of the best baseball players in the history of baseball, Shohei Ohtani. He officially reached 48 and 48, the milestone last night. He's doing it pretty much every single night. So I asked on Twitter, and I want to get your thoughts on this before we wrap up the show. What do you think he hits first, 50 home runs or 50 stolen bases? The people said 50 home runs by a slight margin, though. Only a little bit more than you guys saying 50 stolen bases.
Your poll's still open.
It is still open, so it could be determined in the latter half of the day. But it's crazy either way. I do think personally, I want him to hit the stolen bases first so that you can finish it on the home run. Like you're doing the cutaways to Dodger games for that home run. Maybe it's against the Rockies, but I think his home runs are looking like they're coming every night at this point.
Yeah, I think percentage-wise, you would think it'd be maybe easier for a stolen base because you're getting the opportunities more. You're going to hit more singles than you are home runs. But the way that guy's swinging the bat right now, I wouldn't be surprised. Do you think like that gets into players' heads? Like, do you think any of the Rockies going to face him like don't want to be that 50th guy?
So I was going to ask. Yes, they do. It does. It totally does. When you're facing Shohei Ohtani, every single person in the world is watching. A baseball fan is watching you right then. So that does play into it. It's good exposure for some of these young guys, hopefully. I wanted to ask you, though, and this is a prediction based off of absolutely nothing, but out of sheer prediction, there's a good possibility that Shohei Ohtani does this in Dodger Stadium. Who do you think he hits number 50 off? If it's going to be a Rockies pitcher, who do you think, just prediction-wise, that he gets number 50 off of?
I'm gonna say it's gonna be our boy Ryan Feltner.
Okay. He's a starter.
Well, actually, yeah, it'll be a starter because we play one more game today, and then is a day off tomorrow, and then 3 at the Dodgers.
Yep.
He might not get to start, so that may be a bad prediction. I'm gonna go Senza then. I'm gonna go Senzatella.
Okay.
I think after what I saw from Ketel Marte the other day off him, I think that's a pretty safe bet. So I'm locking it in Senzatella.
We should say that we're not hoping for any of this. We're just trying to put this out there just in case it happens to work out this way. I don't want to go this way, but I've seen Shohei Ohtani hit high velocity really well in his career. I think Seth Halverson might give up his first big league home run as number 50 or 49 to Shohei Ohtani.
That's going to be an electric matchup worth
that
watching.
Would be huge.
Like I have a friend that's a big Vols fan, so we always talk. He doesn't care about the Rockies at all, but now it's like Jordan Beck and Seth Halverson, and there's other guys coming up so we talk about him all the time. And Seth Halverson has the constant. I think you tweet it a lot. I see it on Twitter. Just the velocity of his fastballs throughout an at bat, and it's just 101, 100, all just back to back to back. So that's an electric matchup where it could go. It's volatile. It could go bad either way, or he could strike him out on 3 pitches, and we're like, oh.
And I was going to say, and on the flip side of that, it could put Halverson on the map nationally, because I think you get this national narrative whenever Shohei Ohtani bats of like, okay, we're all watching, and if Seth Halverson can go out there, or any Rockies pitcher, especially the young guys, for that matter, if someone goes out there and goes 3, 1, 2, 3 strikeout or something like that, it kind of puts the world on notice a little bit, saying, hey, this Seth Halverson guy or whoever it is pretty good. And he hasn't given up a run yet, and he's only made his debut just a few weeks ago. So I think that could be a cool storyline for the Rockies.
Prediction time for you. Who gives up a run first, Luis Peralta or Seth Halverson?
Oh man,
They've both been so good.
I think Luis Peralta, because I think he's going to get more innings. Seth Halverson is still in that like closer-ish role for the Rockies, where they only gave him his second inning, for the first time this season. It was 2 days ago. That was the first time he had thrown 2 innings. I think Luis Peralta is gonna pick up a few more innings and just have a higher possibility of just giving up a run. But they've both been phenomenal.
Yeah, and we like to talk about all the bad moves, and obviously people think about the bad, but what a trade! Getting Luis Peralta from
Jalen Beeks.
Yeah, for Jalen. Was it Atlanta?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jalen
What a move! That's
Yeah.
a solid, looking like a good move. So let's pump the good moves. I'll take those.
We'll pump all the good stuff here on the Rockies show. This has been a great show, and it is a great time to be a Rockies fan. Look, I get it. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but you've got to take advantage of when times are good. And right now, times are good in Rockies world. The Rockies have given us hope. We love to see it, and we're just so excited to be able to ride this wave a little bit, hopefully into the offseason. Rockies finish up their series against the Diamondbacks today at Coors Field, 1-10 game. Then they go on the road to take on the Dodgers. I'm going to be hitting the road myself this weekend, so I will not have another podcast until Tuesday of next week. So you can follow us still on Twitter. You can follow us and follow myself at CJJ Saez on Twitter, DNVR_Rockies. Spencer, you do some podcasting for us as well on the golf side of things. Where can they find you on social?
I am at Big Drive Spence. Our golf account is at Big Drive Energy. So go ahead and follow those on the Twitter.
Yeah,
on the X.
golf season's wrapping up as well. It's a good time to be a DNVR sports fan here in Denver. But that's going to do it for us. Shout out to our amazing producer, Tiff, our entire team at DNVR. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Bet365. We will see you guys next week.
We all silly like the mayor.